we will be going. So for today's class, like moderator already said, we would be looking into some various other concepts in Python. So we'll be looking in how to read and write files. We'll also be looking on how we work with CSV files. Then we'll see how we handle errors, and then we would be able to proceed to something else. So we'll quickly look at these three concepts, right? We hope that time will permit us to go as far as we have to go to this evening. But then let's see. So we'll start with reading and writing of files. I would share my screen so that we can follow. Please give me a minute. Okay. Okay. So I I don't know if you can see my screen yet.
Yes, it's loading. So
Okay. I'm going to be
yes, we can.
using okay, I'll be using Google Colab for our class this evening. All right, so we'll be opening a new book. Google Colab is there are various. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right, all right. So I'll be using Google Colab for practice this evening. It's virtual, right? There are other platforms that we could run our Python code on. We have Jupyter Notebook, which most other persons would use, but then I just want to use Google Colab for so that it could be saved and all of that. So, so I said we'll be looking at reading and writing files, and not to waste our time at all, we'll just proceed to how we read, write, and handle files on Python. So let me start by since I don't know the level of the students we have, I believe we'd have both advanced and beginner students. So, but let me just say that when we're talking about files, we are looking at it as a digital piece of paper, right? Something you could write on uh, digitally. For example, since you have like a piece of paper or a physical book, when we're talking about files this time, we're talking about we are looking at that same book or that same piece of paper digitally. So for our class this evening rather, most likely we'd already need a file, right? So to be able to read the file and then we'll be able to write on the file, right? So, and most of the works that you would be doing as a data scientist, you would do more of reading files and writing into files than basically creating files, right? Because these are files that already exist. You need to read them and work with them. So, okay, let's open a file, and then the syntax to open files, uh, it's just to open, right? And then you put in the file name, the mode, and the encoding. Let me just write that down so we can see. So the next things you are writing are the file name, the mode, and then the encoding format. So this is like the syntax to open files. And the file name definitely means the file that you would want to open, right? What is the name and what is the path in your computer system? And then the mode, we have reading, which is R. We have writing, which is W. We have A, which is for appending. So that's the three modes that we have. And then finally for encoding. I think most times the encoding format we use is okay. Let me still write the encoding. Encoding equals so most times the encoding format we use is UTF UTF 8-bit. UTF means Unicode transformation format, and then 8-bit. What this entails is this is like the best and the most usual character encoding format that is used in most coding languages, right? Because it accesses most characters in most languages. I don't know how to explain that less than this, but then this is the usual one that is being used. So I would start by putting that already, and then for the mode, what I mean by mode is if you want to read files, you would just have it like this. Sorry, that should be single, right? Okay. So R, like I said, R is for reading, W is for writing, and then A is for appending. What do I mean by this tree? So to read files mean you just want to be able to access the file. You just want to see what is in the file, and you do not want to edit it, right? You cannot add anything to the file. So it is just read only. So if you are using read, that means you just want to look at what's in the file. While if you want to write on the file, that means you are overwriting what has been written on the file already. So you'd overwrite it and then you would put in what you want to put in that file. While for appending, it's for you to add details to the file, right? So we have reading, we have writing, and then we have appending. So reading is what we'll be using now. So I will just open any file that we have and then work on it. So file name. So okay, so before this, let me quickly give Google Colab access to my. Let me give Google Colab access to my computer, to my computer files, so that I can just take files directly. So to do that, I would just say from Google Colab, import import files, and then uploaded equals. Most times, as you use this often, you would just be able to recall them at the instance. But for now, you might need to memorize them and all of that. So this is what you use to allow Google Colab access your files, right? So if I run this, okay, you might not, you probably did not see me move my mouse to run files like this. All you have to do is just shift enter, right? And then the file will run. Sorry, let's just wait a bit. I don't know why it's taking so much. Oh, okay. What did I do wrongly there? So, sorry, give me a minute. Okay, let's run it again. I think. Am I spelling anything wrongly? Because most times that's what causes things like this. Um, okay, from Google Colab, import files, then uploaded files dot upload. Let's upload. Okay, yeah, sorry, I think that's all right. So that's it. So it gives us access to my distance, and then I can be able to choose file, right? So before I can begin to read file, I have to first of all load files here so that I can read it. So I had already worked on a particular file for us to be able to access, and that is this file here. So I'll just open it so that it will load it there. All right, so now we can run the code to be able to access the file. So we come back to file name. So we can see the file name there. That the file name there is great. So we can see that the file name there is great. Let me move my mouse out. Great, and it's a txt file. But we can also see that there. Okay, so we have we have our encoding format. So let's proceed with this. So this is the file that we want to open. We want to open it as file. We want to open it as file, and we want to be able to look at the contents. All right, so our content will, since we want to read, it to be file.read. Sorry for that, read. Yeah. So, and then we print the content. So, print, okay, print content. So this is the code that would help us access the file that we just got from my local computer, right? So I don't know if I should just run through it again. So we are opening the file. I say that this first one is our file name. That is, let me hover my mouse around there. Our grade.txt is our file name. We saw when I uploaded this from the computer. Then R tells us to read, tells the computer rather to just read. We'll later look at writing and appending. Then encoding, I said this is the most usual encoding format that is used. So you probably could just memorize it. But I told us the meaning, it means Unicode transformation format, and it's in 8 bits. That's why it's UTF-8. And then that is as file. So then content file.read and then print. So let's run it. Okay. I believe it's because we didn't append our files this way. All right. So I forgot to add the with function. I would explain why we are adding the with function in a moment, right? So this is the what is contained in the file that was just read. Now it's the words of one of the hymns that we have, right? So that's what's in the file. So whatever file it is, whatever kind of file it is, you just have to put in the file name and the path, put in what you want the computer to do, the encoding format as file, and then the contents. You tell it to read the content of the file and then to print the content of the file. Now, what that with statement is doing is that it's most times it closes it, right? It closes the file immediately after accessing it. So why it was showing me that error code was because without that with function, since I'm just asking for only read access, I I might be able to, do other details, and it doesn't want that. So I have to add the with function to tell the computer that it should quickly close the file. Immediately it's giving me the details of the file. So that's what the with function does. The with statement, rather, is a statement and not the function. It immediately closes our files and blocks every writing and every editing that you want to do on that file. Okay, so that's that for this. I would want to then go to the right. I think I'll just okay. Let's go to the next. So writing is also the same thing. We start with our with function, open, and then we have this. So let's not forget how we're starting. We're starting with our file name. We have it as great. We have it as great.txt, and the next thing we're having is our mode. And this time we want to write. So the next thing we are having is our encoding, right? And we have it as encoding, and we have that as UTF 8 bits. Okay, so this is as file. As file, and this time we're just having file. Since we just want to write, we do not need to assign. I'm sure we already know how to assign this. So we just file.write, and then we put in what we want to write in. And don't forget that I told us that writing, whenever you are using this mode of writing, what it does is to overwrite what has already been written. So since we already have, for example, the words of this hymn, whenever we're going to be writing in this parenthesis would be what is now going to be in the document and no longer what we already have here. So what we want to do with this write is to overwrite what has already been written, right? So whatever we want to write, we can just write. So let's just write something simple. Chimebuka, right? I am an instructor in Ada Global. Okay, so this is something very, very simple. And we can have that. We're supposed to put that in quotation. So I'm Chimebuka. I am an instructor in Ada Global. So this is a very easy way to write file. So this is going to overwrite the words of the hymn that we just saw. That is the main content of the file. So let's run it. All right, so it has done that, right? So let's read. Let's go back and just copy this code. And then if we bring it here and run it again, we would find out that it has overwritten what was there before. So what is now in the great.txt file is no longer the words of that hymn, but simply I'm Chimebuka, I'm an instructor in Ada Global. Right. So I told you that write overwrites. I believe we get that. I don't know if I can take questions at this point, or let me first of all do appending, then I would see if I can take questions. Right, so appending. So to append, it's almost the same thing as writing files. So we could just easily copy this code because of time. Copy, and then we bring it again. So all we just have to do at this point is just to replace our mode. Our mode here is write, which is W. We just replace it with A, and whatever contents we have in this parenthesis now is going to add to the contents we already have. I told us that appending adds to the contents that you have on the file. So let me just run through it again. Reading shows us what's in the file. Writing overwrites what has been in the file already, and appending adds to what is already in the file. So if I want to add to that, let me quickly. So I might want it to be on a new line, and to do that is this, right? This means I should be on a new line. Okay. So I'm Chimebuka, I'm an instructor in ADA Global, and I could just add, and I love food. Actually, do. So I love food and tech. Let's just put that together. I love food. I love tech. So let's add that. So I'm Chimebuka, I'm an instructor in ADA Global, and I love food and tech. There's no point putting this on there. Right. I love food and tech. Don't forget that this stroke and this n is to take it to a new line. If I do not put that, what's going to happen is that it's going to continue in the previous line. Codes do not read this kind of things by line. They just read their file straight up. Okay, so if we run this, that would be included. And so if we come back and copy this code again, which helps us read the content of the file, and put that here, and allows it to print the content, we'll see that. So I'm Chimebuka, I'm an instructor in ADA Global. I love food and tech. Right, so that's what appending does. That's what reading does. That's what writing does to files. And like I said, most times, as data scientists, as data analysts that are using Python, most likely these are the three functions, right, that you would be going around whenever you are working with files, because it's not most likely that you're going to create files yourself. But even though you would, all you have to do is just to write them, right? And that does that. So I don't know if I can take questions quickly before we continue. We still have two other subtopics to look at before we quickly work on a project together. So just for feedback to be sure that I have people following me. Is there any questions, please? And can we hear me? So I don't know if I will proceed. Hello. Okay, you can hear me. Do you have any questions at this point, or I should continue?
Yeah, you can proceed.
Okay, all right.
From my end.
I thought I heard someone trying to point out something. Okay, I'll just proceed then. So the next thing we'll be looking at is working with CSV files. Sir, please, Sir John, how much time do I have left? Let me see how much I'll speed up what I'm doing.
Within the next 15 minutes, that's fine. They will now take 15 minutes for questions and sort of like review.
Okay. All right, let's proceed then. Okay. All right, so we'll be looking at working with CSV files. I would have loved to get to know if we already know what CSV files mean, but then my time is already fast spent. So CSV files are comma separated values. That's what CSV means, comma separated values. And this is how, for those of us that are probably already working with Excel files, and for those of us that already might be conversant with working on pandas and numpy in Python, most of the documents that you'd be working with would be in CSV files, right? For example, since we're already using Google, I'm not promoting them on this call, but then if you have a Google form, right? If you are trying to read the contents of the Google form, if you're trying to save it to run with it, your files are going to be saved in CSV, right? So what happens is that each value is separated by a comma. Each value is separated by a comma. And simply, so that's just how it goes. So that's what CSV files mean. And so if you want to read CSV files, all we have to do is just to import the CSV file, or import the CSV module, rather. We import the CSV module, and then we open the CSV file using the with statement that we're already using, and then we create a CSV reader so that it can iterate each row. I might not go too deep in reading CSV files with this method, because I think we are still going to be learning about pandas and numpy, and that would be a very easier method to work with CSV files, right? So because CSV files are basically table-like files, but then they're just written in document format, in text format rather. So I will just give us the hinge, and so that we would understand what's happening there. And by the time we are learning pandas and numpy, we would be able to manipulate CSV files as much as we want. Okay, so let's proceed. So we'd have to import the CSV file, like I said. So import CSV, and then we go to open it with open. Okay, so same thing like what we did before. I would still need to allow Google Colab read uh, read the files that I have, right? So I would want to upload a file so that Google Colab can read it. And to do that, let me just copy this code again. I'm copying codes because of time. So if we do this again, we'll be able to upload. All right, so we want to choose file, and the CSV files I have here for demonstration. We have a data set for car prices, and we have another data set for refined e-commerce product data. So we'll just use the data set for car prices. All right, so that's it. So we can see car price dataset.csv. So that's the name of the file. Okay, so let's proceed with what we are doing before. So we import. What did I do there? Edit, change the right color. Okay, import CSV. Then our with statement open. Okay, so don't forget the file name. So the file name that we are dealing with this time is car price. I'm struggling to see right now. Car price data set. Data set. Hope that's it, so I don't get an error. Car price data set.csv. Okay, so that's the file. And so new line. Uh, okay, new line and our encoding. So our encoding remains UTF so we're having this as CSV file. CSV file. Okay, so what the new line is doing, I think that's new. So let me quickly talk about that. What the new line is doing is that um, I think new line is an argument that it helps new line characters. You know, I told us that the CSV files are just a single line document, right? So, but that's not what we want to have. When we want to read the file, we would want it to interpret it in such a format that we can understand, because most times CSV files are tables, right? So we want it to present it to us as tables, and this new line is going to help us such that we are not going to be having it just in a single line, right? So it's going to be able to read when the next line should come in, and then that argument is going to give us a new line. Okay, so that's that. So see as CSV file, and we then go to reader because we want to read CSV file. So csv.reader. So at this point, we need to bring in our delimiter. What the delimiter for CSV files are commas. That's what it's called, comma separated values. So the delimiter is what separates each value. What separates each value? How would our code understand what is to separate each value? So CSV file delimiter, and that would be equal to our comma. Quote character. Okay, so that will be our code character. and then we proceed to the next line. Let me give you a space here. So we proceed to the next line. So for rows, reader. So print row. That's what we want to print. So print row. Okay, so this is what, don't forget I said we'll start with our importing CSV file. So we import the CSV file, and then we go on with the file name that we want to work with, and all this code is just for it to be able to read the contents of the file. We have our delimiter, we have our quote character, and then for row in reader, and then we print. I just hope it will be able to print because I okay. So where did I, oh god, just before my encoding. Okay, well, my delimiter is not spelled correctly. Oh god, so sorry. I am actually with a new system right now, so I'm struggling to understand the keyboard. That's why I'm not as fast as I ought to be. I have to apologize for that. Hope I'm not spelling any other thing wrongly right now. What am I spelling wrong? What am I spelling wrong? What am I spelling wrong? So most times, if you have errors like this, you can be able to interpret uh, what you have been told, right, by just reading what's happening.